Good evening to you and welcome to Africa News Network First Fast Live. My name is Cindy Mabi. Condolences are pouring in over the death of former leader of Bophuthatswana, Lucas Mangope. Mangope died on Thursday at the age of 94. He led the Bantustan territory of Bophuthatswana from 1977 until 1994, when he was ousted during negotiations to bring an end to apartheid. In a statement, the ANC says, although Mangope was against negotiations for a democratic dispensation, the party had cordial relations with the leader. My colleague Urapedze Hlophe takes us through the life and times of the controversial leader.
Let's take a look at the life of Kgosi Lucas Mangope. Well, he was president of the former homeland, Bophuthatswana. He was a high school teacher until the 8th of August 1959. He succeeded his father, Lucas, as the chief of the Motswedi Bahurutsibo Manyane tribe. In 1971, he became the chief minister of the Bophuthatswana Legislative Assembly. In 1997, he became president of Bophuthatswana Democratic Party. He was briefly overthrown in 1988 by members of a military police unit. He was reinstated following intervention by the South African Defence Force. And in 1994, he was ousted as the president of the homeland of Bophuthatswana.
And Northwest Premier Supra Humapelo says the controversial leader will be given a dignified funeral. He says the office of the Premier will be working closely with the Lucas Mangope's family for the same.
He had a very great interest, in youth. That's why when he established the Mavanas, he wanted, children from the age of 7 upwards to be exposed to the arts, to be exposed to the literary arts, the visual arts, the performance, in art, which none of the Bantustans had created, not even the South African government had, done what he set out to do because of his interest in the youth of his country.
And you're welcome to give us a call on 011-203-5120, 011-203-5120, as we pay our tribute and homage to Re Taudona Kgosi Lucas Mangope. And we're joined in studio by Belitzo Dedzi, political commentator. Good evening to you and thanks so much for joining us. I mean, history tends to be distorted and diverted because it's not well recorded. If we're just to look at the man that is Kgosi Lucas Mangope, a disciplinarian, an independent thinker, an very innovative, even ahead of his time, how would you describe him?
Yeah, I would say not even involving, just taking Mangope as a person and looking at him. It's somebody who was very much gifted in terms of addressing, that means speaking to the public. He had that particular charisma in terms of speaking with the public. I think to me, he has the gift of the gap. The only problem with him, he channeled that vast knowledge and important knowledge to the wrong line because he concentrated in a small space. While South Africa is so big, he couldn't move beyond what he sees here to deal with the South African problems holistically. That was his problem. Yeah,
would you say that led to his demise in a sense that he was too so hung up on the leadership of a smaller Bantustan as opposed to wanting to be part of a greater nation?
Yeah, he never wanted to become part of the bigger equation, which is facing South Africa. The oppression, the triple oppressed of women, the laws of apartheid which have been applied to ordinary people in the street. He didn't want to involve himself. Instead, he followed the architect of the Verwoorden, of this idea of homelands, which they started putting it into practice that time. He never thought beyond that particular homeland. He only think around its homeland. But irrespective, he was not aware of his potential. If he has went beyond his homeland, he would have been become a good leader, and he would have contributed so much to the mankind because the guy has a vision. He was a good disciplinarian. You have said it right.
But also the preservation of culture, which is something that we're grappling with now, in the identity, the pride in where we come from, you know, the place of our birth, and having institutions that support that. Today we talk about decolonization of education, but we knew that in then former Bophuthatswana that had been restored, having the universities and the infrastructure that are world-class for that matter in place.
Yeah, I would say that area which you have just quoted, I also give him, because he has a good infrastructure, which is established. Initially, what you say, Bophuthatswana was an empty land, but he has made it important. He went to an extent of building up what is called Sun City, which has drawn many tourists into South Africa that time. That is why I'm saying that as much as he has that, but he was not widening his scope to deal with a broader problem of the South Africans. That was the biggest problem of him.
And we're also joined in studio by Papa Nopasha. She's a political analyst and joining us to discuss and pay tribute to Kgosi Lucas Mangope. I mean, at the age of 94, you could argue that he lived a very rich and long life, and his legacy will continue. Batswana, and you know, I was just talking about the importance of being fiercely protective of your identity and culture. Today, we grapple with those very issues and trying to fit into a system that stripped that very sense of self. In your view, how is Lucas Mangope going to be remembered?
In fact, earlier today, I was having a discussion with, you know, civil servants, some of them from what is now called the Northwest, or as the Premier of Northwest would normally say, Bokoni Bophirima. And one of the things that they were adamant about was that Lucas Mangope was able to inculcate that spirit of patriotism, that spirit of nation building, and I think that's what he will be remembered for. Because if you look at, I mean, some of us, by the way, are products of Bophuthatswana. We were there at primary school. We were part of what was called Mangwana. So we know what he did. And I mean, again, some of the things that they were talking about was the spirit of, you know, the level of decisiveness. I mean, if you look at some of the books and the speeches that he wrote, he always spoke about the land question. He always spoke about the authority that Botswana had in terms of land ownership. Obviously, he was not a perfect man. He made many mistakes, but he was able, you know, to instill some of those ethos. But over and above that, one of the things that I always say is that he was a very creative person. Because if you look at Bophuthatswana at that particular time, you know, some of the things that he was able to do. In one of his books, he says that when we got independence, as he puts it, we had nothing, and we had to start afresh. We built our own universities, we built our own schools, our own airport, our own radio, our own TV station. But over and above that, we inculcated again that spirit of creativity amongst young people with Mabana. Because, for example, if you look in South Africa, some of, you know, visual artists, some of, you know, your general artists come from what was called Bophuthatswana, ballerinas, pianists. So he was able to, you know, he was a man beyond his time, if I might put it like that.
I think we a lot of us are beneficiaries of the vision of Lucas Mangope. Myself, having broken into the industry, started off at Radio Bob and went on to do, you know, work on TV, etc. So it's living evidence, you know, that nobody can dispute that Lucas Mangope indeed was a visionary beyond his time. Where did it go wrong, do you think, in him not having a longer or enjoying the democracy that we enjoy now?
You see, as I'm saying that, he danced to the music of those particular architects of the apartheid, of establishing their homelands. That was his downfall. He went for it, all out for it, without thinking broadly about the oppression which is there in the whole South African country. So I think these shortcomings wherever he goes, they're still going to haunt him because the knowledge which was gifted by God, if he has used that knowledge for the benefit of the South African, I am telling you today, this country would have said, let the flag go half because of the knowledge the guy he has. You get my point?
Yeah, and we talk about the caliber of leadership and unfairly compare the young leaders versus maybe more prolific stalwarts, so to speak. Do you think that there is a succession that Lucas Mangope would still live on, if for nothing else, but in just the governance, the level of independence and pride that he took in his culture and who he is?
Look, I think, I mean, sitting where I'm sitting, any government is bound to make mistakes. What we have seen, for example, with the ANC-led government, it has made its own mistakes. And, you know, sometimes they say that the king, when he's ruling, he's not able to reflect on the mistakes that he has made. You know, I often read what Supra Mahumapelo would say in his speeches. And one of the things that he would normally speak about is rebranding, renewing Bokoni Bupirima. Rebranding and renewing it to what? You know, there are many people who appreciate what Remanyane Tautuna has done. Many people. And one of the mistakes that I think our government made, especially when we got into power and we were, you know, for example, individuals like Popo Molefe, when they were sent to the Northwest, individuals like Thandi Modise was to try to rewrite history and not to take what he had done, because there were good things that he had done. I mean, for example, if you look at the Constitution itself today, there were some aspects which were taken from the Constitution of Bophuthatswana. I mean, there was the Office of the Ombudsman in Bophuthatswana. You had manpower. So there were many things that he was able to do. But then when the ANC got into power, they wanted to start afresh. They tried to dismantle what he had done. That's why Northwest was in a mess at a particular time, and we cannot deny it. You know, I'm saying that let us reflect. Let us reflect on the good and the bad that he has done. I mean, we've got King Zwelithini. He's adored today. He was even worse, by the way, than Lucas Mangope. If you look at Holomisa, if you look at all these homeland leaders, you compare them, you compare Bophuthatswana, and you compare these homeland countries and how we view these leaders today. Bophuthatswana was far above its time, yet those leaders are seen as part of the new South Africa. So I think, you know, there's a level of disingenuity from our part in terms of how we want to analyze history. You know,
or hypocrisy, you know, in that we choose who we're going to laud and revere and who you're going to malign based on whatever the new dispensation is.
Look at Gatshabu Telezi. Gatshabu Telezi was part of a system where our people were killed. But now he's in parliament, he's an elder, and he's a paragon of truth. I mean, as you're saying, where is the consistency? So I think for the people of Bophuthatswana or Botswana, or the people of Northwest, they must be able to, you know, to reflect, they must be able to celebrate Manyane Mangope and all that he taught them, and bring whatever he has taught them to the new dispensation, especially when it comes to the issues of nation building, because that's what the ANC is lacking. They were not able to inculcate that spirit of a nation building and patriotism. So those are some of the lessons that could be learned from Lucas Mangope.
Of course, we'll take your calls on 011-203-5120. That's 011-203. 5120 as we pay homage to this great leader who passed on yesterday at the age of 94. And the structures remain, though. I mean, over the years, you just have to look at the genius of Lucas Mangope in the stadium Komabatu. You were talking about Mabana, the cultural pride and inculcating local talent, creating vibrant industries. Everybody had a job, and, you know, there was structures and processes in place, safety, etc. That could have just been expanded to the rest of the country as opposed to sidelining him.
I think his mistake, somewhere he became selfish. I'll say why I'm saying he's become selfish. When he was called to become part of the CODESA, in terms of negotiations, he never wanted. What it means, what implies is that he agrees with the old system of apartheid of homeland. He does not want to change or to transform to a new setup which has been introduced in South Africa. That is why I'm saying that's where his intelligence obscured him from the realities. So in that way, that was his downfall. All good things which he has done, they were removed because of his behavior.
Yeah, so not wanting to relinquish power. I don't know if at the negotiation table at that time whether he would have still had the authority as being the premier, or whatever conversion would have been of him as the leader of Bophuthatswana, and now still being able to govern the Northwest. I don't, you know, we're very thin on the details of what happened then. Love and hate relationship, you still say, but in the main, he'd be remembered as a good man.
Yeah, but I would say that possibly, if he was part of the negotiations, at the end of the day, he would have probably kept that position of Bophuthatswana as a premier of Bophuthatswana. Now, hence I'm saying that he was short-sighted from these particular important things of becoming part of South Africa. So he thought the architect of Verwoerd was the best to stay at, because even when they were taking over the country from Bophuthatswana, when they put him in that stadium, he called in the Afrikaners to come and save him from that.
But let me just differ a little bit. I mean, obviously, Mangope, you know, at times when we reflect on history, it's important that we analyze the politics of the time. He was not a perfect man, like many of our leaders. And in fact, one can romanticize CODESA. It had its own misgivings. Today we celebrate a man like F.W. de Klerk. Is it because he was part of the CODESA negotiations, when we know that he was part of a system that killed our people? He actually at some point won some Nobel Peace Prize, but what did he do in terms of the relevance, what he did to build a nation? I would say that he has never done anything. But I'm saying that we could actually, reflect on what Mangope did despite his mistakes. I mean, for example, you spoke about your tenure or your history within this industry. If you look, for example, at your SABC, at your Metro FM, the most seasoned, radio DJs, your Glenn Lewis, your Ben Dikobes, your Bob Mabena, your, Zandile Nzalo, your Penny Libiani. Many of them, they started their craft in Radio Bob. Yeah. If you look at, the station itself, they were able to invite, for example, your Michael Jackson of this world. Your Celine Dion was able to record her album, at Bob Studios. So even Sun City, one of the things, again, and I'm saying that for me it is important, one of the mistakes that the ANC government did was not to dismantle the structures that they found, but want to be co-opted into the system. For example, black students must go to your racist institutions, force themselves. That's not what Mangope did. You look at UNIBO, for example. With UNIBO, that was an institution or a university, in fact, that was started by Botswana, with monies of Botswana people, led by Lucas Mangope. If you look at some of the other institutions, your manpower, for example, I'll tell you, Cindy, in the old Bophuthatswana, if you did not excel academically, you would have your manpower where students would be able to use their practical labor and have, skills where they'll be able to study. It does not happen now in post-apartheid South Africa. So I'm saying that there are lessons to be learned, because surely he was not perfect, but he was not as perfect as many of the leaders who were part of the apartheid government who killed our people. So they are part of this new dispensation. How different are they?
Just a quick apology to our viewers. The power lines are down, I'm told, so we do apologize. We're not able to take your calls, but you're welcome to join us on social media. It's at 8 and 7 TV as we pay homage to Re Daudona Khosi Lucas Mangope. How well do you remember him, and how has your life been changed in your sense of pride, and not only in literature but black excellence, even before the term became popular? As you were.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you, all royals, they are proud of, but the first thing which comes is themselves. You see how I feel about myself before it taken to the people. He has that pride because 1971 he took over from his father as the chief of the Manyane clan. He had that pride in that particular protocol. He had within him. But hence I said earlier on, I respect him because he was a good disciplinarian. I've seen that when I was going to Mafikeng, before I reached Mafikeng, I came across the police. The way those police act, they act as if Mangope is next to them. He's standing here, he's seeing them. That tells you a story that even in his absence, the people who are working under him, they keep to the instructions. Hence, I'm saying that he was a good disciplinarian, because I've seen him from that end, that, oh, you can't be around. From there, I was not encouraged to go to Bophuthatswana because of this hard.
Yeah, the hard stance to and also the protection of his independence, the rejection of being included in the greater South Africa.
Do you think discouraged to go there?
Yeah, but did he get his due though within the new dispensation of be it recognition of what he has done, be it appreciation for that matter, and a continuation of his legacy?
Look, that's one of the things that I continue to ask. Because if you look at post-1994 South Africa, they speak of this rainbow nation. And our government will contextualize this rainbow nation in relation to the minority government of white people. And it makes me wonder because, you know, Lucas was also part of a dysfunctional political system. You know, now the question is, why did our government choose to adorn leaders like F.W. de Klerk whilst relegating someone like Lucas to the back burner? Perhaps it's because of his arrogance and his inability to want to negotiate. But I don't think he was worse off than some of these leaders. Yeah. And as I said, I mean, my logical conclusion would be that the provincial government of Northwest would need to give Manyane Mangope that, you know, that state or that provincial funeral. And I know that if Super Mahuma Pelu does that, the people of Northwest will be eternally grateful. Because, you know, Cindy, I'll tell you this. As I'm saying, what Mangope did, it was so different because he started from the ground. That's why I think people see value in what he did. The schools that he built, you know, the institutions of higher learning, the hospitals. I mean, if you go to Liuruti, if you go to Mafikeng, if you go to Madikwe and all these places, you would see, you know, teacher colleges. They were closed, by the way, in 1994 when we came into power. Teacher colleges, nursing colleges, they were there in Bophuthatswana. And I'm saying that as much as there were many things, or many wrong decisions that he made, you know, there are many good things that he did. But more importantly, he envisaged for Botswana to recognize their identity. You know, in African historiography, we say it's positioning African eschatology. We've seen it with the Zulu nation. They call themselves Zulus. I mean, again, as I've said, your Buthelezi, your Kings Wellington, they're part of the system. But today, Zulus are recognized. In fact, KwaZulu-Natal, you know, is still called KwaZulu-Natal. So what is the difference? So you can see that there's a level of inconsistency. I would not want to say hypocrisy. I mean, Bantu Holomisa is one of the most celebrated political leaders. But what did he do for his own homeland? Because he was a leader of a homeland. What does he have to show today? Nothing. There's squalor, there's degradation if you go to that particular province today. So I'm saying that, you know, we must be able to speak to, you know...
What hope is there that we're going forward very briefly, and I beg your pardon. Yeah. And if we're going to always erode the good that a particular leader had done because the new caliber of leaders, or rather group of people, want to take the glory. You understand where I'm going? In the sense that there is no succession or continuation. And if Lucas Mangope is not given a state funeral, or we're told he's getting a dignified funeral, I'm not sure what that entirely means. Where are we going as a country if we want to build already on what has been there?
Yeah. Let me put it. Firstly, I want just to say what Papano said earlier on. You know, de Klerk made a coup against P.W. Botha. P.W. Botha never left that seat freely. No, it's de Klerk who went there and took it by force from him, because the idea of de Klerk was that PW is delaying the freedom of everybody. I still remember when he was announcing that at Parliament, most wise, they moved out, they left because of what de Klerk was saying with his mouth was not.
I beg to differ. In fact, if you look at, I beg to differ with due respect in that
Yes.
dates. You know, if you look at many journalists, for example, and the history that is there, even if you were, for example, to go to, you know, the paper, Apartheid Grand Corruption, one of the things that the authors there say is that apartheid was brought to its knees because of corruption, and because the apartheid government no longer had enough, enough money to sustain itself. It's not as if F.W. de Klerk came to the bargaining forum because he wanted to see black people liberated. It's not true. In fact, that is
and let alone economic sanctions.
That is why F.W. de Klerk today still wants, white people to be in charge. That's why F.W. de Klerk today detests the ANC-led government. That's what
What I'm saying is that the coup, remember that the Tutus of this world, Bishop Tutu, 1985, there was an embargo against South Africa, okay? So many people were no more investing. South Africa was a junk state that time. When de Klerk acted, he acted because seeing the situation that is gradually deteriorating in South Africa.
I think you're saying the same thing.
Yeah,
actually,
we're saying the same thing.
It was not as if de Klerk did it because he wanted to see black people liberated. And by the way, remember when Beck Botha passed on, there was a flag put on half-mast. I mean, what audacity by our own government.
We still have a lot to work through. I mean, we're only scraping the surface 23 years down the line.
There's a level of self-hate, by the way.
We're going to have to leave it there.
By a black woman.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. As always, Papano Pasha, political analyst, and Repilitso Tetsi, political commentator, joining us as we reflect on the life and times of Kgosi Lucas Mangope. You at home, we do apologize again that we weren't able to take your calls as the lines are down and our technicians are working on that. We'll take a quick break. We'll see you shortly.